Elayne Bennett founded the Best Friends Foundation in 1987 and serves as its president. It is a program for girls and boys promoting abstinence from sex, drugs, and alcohol. The program has already gained national attention and is proving one of Best Friends' messages true. The best kind of friend is one who encourages you to be a better person. And 6-time Emmy Award-winning anchor and executive producer Nancy Glass talks about growing up having a mind of her own and how that has helped her balance her life and career. Join me, Dr. Gail Gross, as I sit down with Elayne Bennett and Nancy Glass. I'm Dr. Gail Gross. I'm delighted you could join me today. My guest is Elayne Bennett. She is the founder of Best Friends, a group whose mission is to encourage girls to abstain from alcohol, drugs, and sex. For her work, she was presented the prestigious American Institute of Public Services Jefferson Award. She's been called the best friend a girl ever had. Elayne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gross.
Tell us about Best Friends.
Well, it's a wonderful program. It's a developmentally sound program that begins in the 6th grade and follows girls all the way through high school graduation. And we're delighted. We have a 100% graduation rate. It's based on a curriculum of friendship, love, and dating, which is one of our units, self-respect, and decision-making. And then the second half of our curriculum is about the risk behaviors of drugs and alcohol, tobacco, and sexual activity. And we present this in the school day, which is quite a feat, and I think leads to our success.
What made you think of this? I know you were a school teacher.
That's right.
Had 2 children.
That's right.
How did you do it? Why did you do it?
Well, I did it because I think it had to be done. I was working part-time in the Child Development Center at Georgetown University, and my specialty was infants and early development, and I had the opportunity of seeing very severely involved infants coming in for evaluation. And I would go to the charts and I would check age of mother, and in the early years, I'd been working at this nearly 15 years, 20 years, age of mother was generally 18, 19. Then it dropped to 16, 17. When I began seeing age of mother at 12 and 13, I knew something had to be done. And as we would talk with the girls, we would discover that many of them had become sexually active at a very young age. And as a result, you know, when the boy leaves, as he always does when you're 15, 16, it led to some emotional issues for the girls who were certainly not from low-income families.
How does it work that you can motivate children who are so exposed and influenced by media and peer groups? How does it work that you can get them to abstain?
Well, it's a very good question, and it's one that I'm asked quite a bit. My husband says we must push back as hard as the age that pushes against us. And right now the age is really pushing against us, as I know you're well aware. There's a real obsession with sex right now. Just turn on the television. I think many in the media think that sex sells. Children are hearing sexual messages earlier and earlier. And what they're looking for, and the children are smart, they're looking for guidance, and it often comes from their homes when parents say, turn that off. You know, you shouldn't be seeing that. Or from schools where they say, look, right now what you need to do is focus on learning and growing up instead of adult behavior. That will come later. So I think what we do is we present this in a reasonable way. Parents can, we've never had a parent take her daughter or his daughter out of our program. And I think they see us as allies in building a sound character for their children.
In this program is a huge mentoring part.
That's right, very important.
So tell us the curriculum of this program, how the mentoring works, how the intensity of abstinence is actually created? How does it happen?
We have 7 components. We began with our curriculum, which we know is excellent. It's been evaluated by many school systems around the country, public schools and private schools. And the curriculum begins with friendship, which we think is so vital because peer support is so necessary to an adolescent's decision-making. And this seems to be a winning combination. And it is intense, as you say, but it's worth it.
Best Friends is such a great program, and you have accomplished so much in the last 15 years. I know you've brought a tape that helps tell the story. Let's look at it now.
For almost 15 years, we at the Best Friends Foundation have worked with young girls, providing a clear, resounding message to these women of tomorrow.
Our Best Friends message, simply put, is self-respect through self-control. That by controlling oneself, particularly in behavior that can put one at risk, and that's sex, drugs, and alcohol, we know the dangers there. By saying no to those kinds of behaviors, that a young girl and a young boy can gain the kind of self-respect necessary for the self-confidence to make the right decisions and to lead a happy and healthy life.
Well, Best Friends, I would say, is like a reinforcement to everything my mother taught me. That's like a major part of development, and it's good that we had someone there to guide us through it, so we weren't there alone.
Best Friends teaches girls that they should stay abstinent from sexual activity, but we give them a lot of things to say yes to. We give them choir, we give them dance, we give them internships, and we give them college prep. And these are things that they want because it helps them fulfill their dreams. So children can say no to sexual activity because our Best Friends girls do.
What a difference you can make in each other's lives. How important it is to be a good friend to your friends, and when you end up being a good friend to your friends, you're also being a really good friend to yourself.
Our girls face many challenges and struggles each day, so we take our program to the front lines, into the schools. Here, the girls come face to face with choices that will affect them for the rest of their lives. Our program offers a well-defined and time-tested curriculum that addresses love and dating, friendship, self-respect, drug and alcohol abuse, physical fitness, and nutrition. We are there to help young girls make good decisions and support each other as they pursue the path to a successful future.
I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for.
That was fascinating, and it works. You actually have now definitive research, that shows that programs such as this do make a difference.
That's true.
And I'm going to ask you a question I know that a lot of moms are thinking about. I myself, as a working mom, want to ask, how did you manage the family structure? What were the ABCs of your family structure program to make all of this work?
To make all of this work at home and
at home
and at Best Friends. I think A, and that's as a teacher I appreciate the ABC. I think A is children first.
Yes.
Our sons had to come first. I have a just turned 18-year-old who had his prom Saturday night, and I have a 12-year-old, and they needed to know that I would always be there for their games, for their activities, and that I was able to package this program within my children's school day as well as the Best Friends Girls School Day.
And B?
B would be, I think, joy and happiness, trying to keep a positive outlook on my children at home and the program, and letting people see that working with children is a happy business. When you're happy, or when you see the good and don't concentrate on some of the things that are not so good, and there are a lot of things that are not so good, but children take their cues from you, as we all know, and if they see that you are feeling happy and And even if the stress might be a little intense, you keep it under wraps. It seems to go smoothly. C, I think, and this is a word that's used a lot, but networking. Involving parents of not only your children, your own children, but the children in the program, and involving the wonderful people in the community.
I think one component is that you're modeling service, good citizenship, caring for the connection of the family and then the outer family, the community. Mm-hmm. And I always say to parents, be what you want to see. In a sense, that's really what you're showing your children. In the real world, most parents have to both work. It is just a component of our culture, and you're showing a way to do that that's constructive.
Work can be a good thing. Work can make you feel gratified. It doesn't have to take over your life. As long as children know there's always a place for them, and that place is first place, I think you can do it.
And the idea that in this program, girls are being valued, therefore taught to value themselves.
Exactly.
How does that happen? Can you follow it in the end? Have you seen how these children later on in time perform in that self-valuing mode?
We certainly have. It's been just incredibly gratifying. We have about 65 girls who are on scholarship through Best Friends in college. And they're in wonderful schools like Spelman and Cornell, and how they're so grateful they had the support of Best Friends. And they had the adults there as role models. They had the peer support, which is important. And now they're there, and we can see it, and we're so proud of these girls.
And how do these girls get into Best Friends?
The principal is key. The principal has to want the program. We take an entire class of 6th graders, so there's not a selection process. When there's a situation where the 6th grade is very large, we do a random survey, random sampling, so that there's no self-selection and there's no stereotyping, because this is a program that is not for say all the girls who have it all together, the student leaders, and it's not for girls who are at risk. It's for all girls.
And now our time is up, and I hate that we have to leave this important subject, but I have to ask you one final question. What was the defining moment in your life?
The defining moment was when I married my husband.
Oh, you too.
It was absolutely. In 1982, because for many, well, I wouldn't have my wonderful sons, and they are truly, truly gifts from God. And I was older, and he was older, and we had almost given up that we were going to find the right person. He has been such a force in my life because he supported me in Best Friends. I'll never forget our long drive to North Carolina, 7 hours. He said, "You need to write a paper." And we started talking about it together in the car, and we got the premise of Best Friends. Based on, we outlined the curriculum model. It was amazing how it all fell together. So he's given me not only guidance and love and fun, but truly changed my life. It was a defining moment.
That's wonderful. And thank you for being with us today, Elayne. Elayne Bennett, as we said earlier, you have been called a girl's best friend, and now we know why. Now let me tell you about my next guest. Nancy Glass is a 6-time Emmy Award-winning broadcaster. A few years ago, she decided to put her family first and make a change in her high-profile career. After commuting from her Philadelphia home to New York for 12 years to host several nationally seen news, magazine shows, she decided she wanted to be home more often and started her own production company 2 miles away from her house. That was 3 years ago. Today she has 8 series on the air for various cable networks, including the Discovery Channel, Good Life TV Network, and Home and Garden Television, where you can see her Monday nights as the host of Smart Design. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
It's such a great opportunity to speak to someone who has made such an incredible success out of their lives and really, in the beginning, had to deal and compensate for what we consider today a disadvantage, which is attention deficit disorder. Tell us how that affected you as a child.
Well, I think as a kid, I was always spinning. And I'm sure a lot of adults relate to this. You'd sit in class and you're just drifting, and I was like the kid who forgot her head. Everywhere I went, I left something. Everywhere I went, I forgot something. I couldn't focus on anything. And it really was a problem. It became a family joke, but it really was a problem.
And you accommodated how?
Well, a lot of ways. For one thing, I would found that I could accommodate with personality. So if I forgot to do the homework because I forgot it, or because I wasn't paying attention because I was spinning out of control in school, just mentally sort of spinning someplace, I would be asked a question, and I would come up with an entertaining answer that had nothing to do with the question. So I sort of tried to charm my way out of it. And of course, teachers knew something was up.
Did they tell your parents?
Well, what they did was they decided that they would test me, because they had to figure out why a girl wasn't living up to her potential, which is what we hear about all these people. So I went for a test. I was sent to the school psychologist, a very stern-looking woman, Miss Hume, with big, big shoes.
Isn't it interesting how we never forget Mrs. Hume? We never do. On all those Mrs. Humes out there.
She had lace-up high heels. It was really I used to be fascinated by that. And she would say to me, "This doll is Mommy and this doll is Daddy. Why don't you show me what happens at home?" And I'd say, "Can I do something else?" And she'd say, "What do you want to do?" And I'd say, "I'd like to do an art project." And she'd say, "All right, what do you want? Draw something that shows the way you feel." And I'd say, "No, can I play with clay?" So every Tuesday and Thursday for a year, I made a bowling ball. Sometimes I made a bird bath. And at the end of the year, they called in my frustrated parents and frustrated teachers, and they said, "This kid is bored." That's what it is. But really, that was what I learned, that as a kid, although I didn't learn that as a kid, I learned that as an adult. But what happened was, if I wasn't completely engaged, I was completely gone. Like all these kids you see with ADD who are just kind of drumming and looking around, I was no different.
You were distracted.
Very easily.
And of course, those very techniques that we now call, or those strategies that we use to multitask,
right?
Looking here, looking there, doing all these things at once, that we call ADD, really do you in such good stead in the work you've chosen for your life's career.
That's exactly right, Dr. Gross. That is a very good point, because I find that unlike most people, the more noise and the more tumult, the easier it is for me to get things done. I own a company, I have an executive office, I have 4 other people in my office, because I need as much noise as possible to focus. I have, I guess, what's called a paradoxical reaction. The more stress, the easier things become for me. The less stress, the more I have time to kind of spin and wander.
This is so fascinating. What you've done is you've accommodated for your attention deficit disorder by using the external world to, in a sense, calm you down. Right. Whereas most of us would use a medication, the internal world, to calm us down. Ritalin, right, of course, is a stimulant. Right. But if you have ADD, the stimulant, in a sense, focuses you.
It works paradoxically.
And
exactly.
You use the external world and stimulation from the external world to do the same.
Well, I mean, it's a very good observation. I chose a career that would force me to focus. And the harder things got for me, the better I did. I did better in high school than I did in junior high. I did better in college than I did in high school, because the harder it got, the more I would focus. And by the same token, when you talk about medicating, for me, I wasn't interested in drinking, and I was so afraid if I took a drug that something, because I knew that my life spiraled a little bit. Even as a kid, I was aware of that. So I thought a drug would make it even worse. So the only option I had was to find my own coping mechanism, and it turned out that noise is it. And you know, what you pointed out about our world today, we're in a world that demands that we're multitasking.
Right.
We've got the latte under one arm and the cell phone in the other, and we're driving the car with our elbows.
And never know how we get to our destination.
Right,
but
exactly.
somehow we do.
Right.
You know what's so interesting about that, Nancy, is that ADD may very well turn out to be something that was built into us to survive in more primitive cultures. We had to hear what was coming. We had to stop, look, listen for any kind of danger in our surrounding. So the very thing in a primitive culture that we needed to survive in the kind of culture we have today, which in many ways was more sedentary, has in a sense been a disadvantage. And you did the most wonderful thing. You accommodated your problem.
Accidentally. Certainly accidentally, because I come from the generation where kids had to go to school and sit quietly. But I wasn't sitting quietly. And even now when I see kids and they're, you know, fiddling all around, they don't do their quiet time or their circle time, and I've talked to teachers about this because I have 2 children, they say, now it's okay. And in fact, the only reason I realized I had ADD was, you know, you asked me about testing when I was a child. My children were given a test. So I thought, okay, I'll take it too. So, you know, the test says, these activities happen to you rarely, seldom, often, very often, all the time. And I'm going, distracted all the time, you know, wander around all the time. And I realized my kids are fine, and I'm the one who's got it. And the psychologist said, you've got some kind of problem here. I said, but, you know, for me, it's not a problem.
Yes.
It's become the best way to function.
And it works in your world.
And
That's
it works
the
in my
key.
world.
Many times when a child has ADD or ADHD, someone who is significant in their life can really make a difference. Did you have such a mentor, someone that really shifted the field for you?
That's very perceptive. Yes, I did. And I always did. I always had a teacher in school who saw me as a kid with a lot of potential. And I always had a teacher take me under her wing. And that happened to me in every grade I can think of. Not that I was ever a teacher's pet, because I wasn't, because I'm telling you, I mean, I dropped everything, I tripped over everything. You can't believe the things I forgot to do. But some teachers saw potential, and they mentored me. And then when I got into my business, people mentored me, because I got into my business when I was 18 years old.
Amazing.
And I was a hardworking kid, and I also sought that. I found people who liked to help young people, and now I do the same.
And so if you had now advice for parents who have children that have ADD or ADHD, having experience growing up without the diagnosis, what would you tell parents? What do you think would be helpful?
Well, I think it's tough. It's tough for kids and it's tough for parents, because you don't know what's really going on. And I guess I would say, understand a little bit more that not every child has to sit quietly, that not every child can, you know, can come home and just do their homework. My son said to me the other day, Mom, you know, when I'm writing a paper, sometimes I just have this uncontrollable urge to get up and walk around the house, and then I sit down and I continue writing. He's a fabulous student. And I said to him, I know what that's like. Walk around the house if it makes you feel better. I would say to parents, be flexible in your outlook. And then take them to somebody who can diagnose them. And I know some people do need medication. I have not wanted it. But if you do need it, take it.
So many times adults who don't know they have ADHD or ADD will self-medicate by using coffee,
Right.
or melatonin,
Right.
or some other stimulant or hormone regulator, and never realize what they're really doing. They go out and play tennis and say, gee, I always play better. I'm more focused when I drink a lot of coffee before the game. And in a sense, what you're saying is, if you need the medication, young or old, take it.
But it's funny because I don't drink a lot of coffee, because if I do, it slows me down.
Yes.
And once again, you have the paradoxical reaction. So I find that I can't. If I drink coffee, I want to take a nap. So people do, I think people are pretty smart. And I think people do find their coping skills. And I think you have to, forgive your children and forgive yourself, because we don't all fit into this little box. And maybe sometimes being different is better than anything. I have a friend who tells her son, you have ADD, and that means that your engine runs a little faster than other people's, which makes you worse at some things, but it also makes you better. So let's find those things.
I love that. And of course, the other part of that is not only can it make you better in many ways, but some of our most brilliant people have a form of ADD or ADHD. I mean, the list goes on and on. Einstein and Dr. Salk, just to name a couple. And the gifted child often shows a lot of the symptoms of ADD, many times because of boredom or because they're ahead of their peers and don't want to be ahead, want to fit in. And you used an interesting coping skill. You used personality.
Well, I had to, because I couldn't follow what was going on. I couldn't look at numbers and see numbers. It's interesting, now I run budgets and I don't have that problem, but I couldn't look at them and see them. There were concepts I couldn't grasp because of the way they were being delivered to me, which was in a very conventional way. I would have to, once again, wait until the very last minute and force myself to focus. So again, I always wanted to succeed. Even as a little kid, I always wanted to succeed, so I was lucky that I developed a personality that could please the other adults and children and get along. Not everybody does that. And some kids find very destructive coping skills. Well, not even coping skills, but some kids cope in a destructive way where they challenge their parents, they become very combative, they challenge other kids because they feel like such outsiders. They don't know how to fit in. I'm very lucky. I always say I'm an adult child of normal parents, a very normal, loving family, and it helped me, my parents didn't overly discipline me for what they perceived as clearly a difference.
And the other part of that, I think, is the mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that someone believed in you, thought you could do a good job.
Yes.
And you did then do a good job, and it became like a self-fulfilled prophecy.
But it's funny, again, because your world is either totally unfocused or very focused, I never realized I was doing a good job. I just realized that things were clicking. And the thing with people with ADD is, once it clicks, it really clicks.
It's wonderful. And this is such an inspirational conversation, because it's so wonderful to see how someone had a disadvantage and made it work for them. It's great, Nancy. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, for showing us that through education and determination, you can turn what some people consider a disadvantage into an advantage. I'm Dr. Gail Gross. Thank you for joining us.